record on this computer. And I'm going to start the live stream. Give me just a second here. This is, I'm using Zoom, and there's a way you can Zoom to Facebook Live. And then what I do is I always pull Facebook up in another window to make sure that I can actually see the stream working on here. So that's what I'm doing in the background right now. And I'll welcome our virtual audience who might be watching us on Facebook through the Inforum page. They may be watching us this morning on Thursday morning, and they may be watching this playback later on today. So welcome to all of you. Let's see, it looks like the live stream is working. Perfect. So good morning, everyone. This is Inforum Troy Virtual. My name is Brenda Mahler. I'm one of the co-hosts for the Inforum Troy group here. And I want to introduce our speaker for today, Marilyn Opdyke, who's going to be discussing exit planning for the self-employed and solopreneur. So really looking forward to this topic, Marilyn, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and I'll be here for you if you need some help getting that screen share set up.
Thank you, Brenda. And hi, everybody. Good morning. That topic that I think those of us who are a little older are kind of jumping on, and maybe the youngers not so much, but I think there's some input here for everybody. Most of you know I've been a long-term Inforum member and Troy Affinity Group member. And in February, I decided to close down my company and retire. I had started the company in January of '99 after a long career in corporate. And back then, Brenda said, well, I think, you should be telling us about getting ready for retirement. I said, well, let me get into it first. So I'm a newbie in retirement, and God knows it's been a strange stretch because of the pandemic and other things that go on. But I think that's kind of the reality check of what happens with retirement too. So let me share my screen real quick. Let me go here. All right, everybody got my screen in there?
Perfect, Marilyn, go right ahead.
Awesome, thank you so much. And thank you, Brenda, for the coaching earlier on that. The first thing I want to say about the planning here and this move into retirement or even semi-retirement is that what I've learned is that it's really very, very much like a career transition. You go through all of that introspection. You have to really reinvent yourself and redesign how your life operates. And it can be a really exciting time. It can be a little scary, but it can also be really exciting. But just like any career transition, you gotta plan. The planning for that, my retirement happened in February. My planning for it was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm 68 years old. At one time, way back, I thought, all right, at 65, I'll retire, and everything will be good. Well, I decided I needed to keep going. I had some things going on that I needed to keep working for. So we're going to make those decisions, but the planning happens way back. But then there's always that thing about planning. And let me move this along. Okay, so now, Brenda, now my screen's not moving.
Your mouse isn't
my
letting you.
slideshow. Let me,
try to click on your enter bar, Marilyn. Sometimes that works. And then if that doesn't work, try the arrow buttons.
I'm on the arrow buttons.
And that's not
I'm
working.
thinking back when I opened it, perhaps forgive me, guys, technology is not my strength. Brenda has coached me over the years on things dealing with
We're
technology.
all good. We'll get you through this, Marilyn. So can you,
I appreciate it.
Can you click
Let me
on
go back. Go ahead.
I click on escape on your keyboard. Okay, now try to advance your slide. No,
Escape isn't changing anything either.
Okay.
So
now can you go back to the screen where you're seeing your slides? Are you able to navigate back there?
Let me see if I can get back. It's like I can't, it didn't open slideshow. That's
all right, I can help you out too, Marilyn.
Let me try this. Hold on.
Okay.
Same thing happened to me during a presentation. I had to sort of restart it.
Restart it? Like
stop the share and then try to reshare it again.
Okay.
Let's try that.
All right.
And if that doesn't work, Marilyn did send me a copy of her slides last night. We are prepared for a backup plan if needed, But I'd prefer to have her because it's always so much better when you're advancing your slides on your own. So
Yeah, I agree. How do I get out of the share?
so are you in Zoom right now, Marilyn?
I was, and now I just hit the share again, and it's popping up like, what screens do you want to share?
Okay, go back
But-
to Zoom first, and you want to, when you're inside Zoom, you should see a stop share.
How do I go back to regular Zoom?
Here we go. I'm going to stop
there
it
it
for
is.
you.
Perfect.
I just stopped
Okay.
it for you. Now let's
Mhm.
try to share the screen again. And I have the slides in my background too. So if we can't get this to work, I'll flip mine up on here. So let's
Okay.
try to share your screen. So click on the share screen button.
Just did.
Okay.
Double click on my slides again. Now I'm wondering if maybe if I double click on this one and then I can.
There you go. And now try to advance. Will that work?
No, it's not happy.
Okay.
If I manually
There you
do it
go.
on the side, but you guys can see all my buttons on the side,
And
right?
now it just advanced. Now we're on a slide that says plans are useless, the quotes on there.
Okay. And
Yep.
you can see that without all my other stuff from PowerPoint?
We can see, yeah, we can see like the thumbnails on the side, Marilyn,
Yeah,
but
that's what
we'll
I was
promise
trying.
not
I
to
was
read
trying
ahead.
to get to my, so where you hit slideshow. Let's see. Let's try resume slideshow. Now let's see if it works. Ah,
There you go.
ha, there we go.
All right, we're in business.
Thank you. And and this is exactly what this quote is all about. This quote comes from Dwight Eisenhower. And what did he say back? This goes all the way back to World War II. He said, plans are useless, but planning is essential. And we all know why he said that, because whatever when you're planning, you think you know what's going to happen. You plan for an event like this and life happens. Life kicks in, things change. But planning is what's going to get you to a point where you're ready to adapt. And one thing I've learned so far about retirement is you got to adapt to a lot of stuff all the time. You're making your plans, you're coming along. Who would have thought there'd be a pandemic? Part of my plan, part of my the things that my husband and I like to do the most together is travel. We had plans to travel multiple places around the world. I have a map on the wall. I showed Brenda earlier. All the pins are in there, the places we've been. Pandemic hits, everything goes to hell. So we need to remember that even though that happens, the fact that we have done that planning is still hugely critical to what we're doing. So when you're a solopreneur, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're self-employed, that planning really takes place on a couple of levels. So when you're ready to make that decision and go forward, closer into the timing, you've got to plan for changes in your business. You've got to, first of all, you set your timing. You say, all right, this is when I'm going to ease out of this, or this is how I'm going to make this transition. You got to do some pretty basic things. You've got to assess your assets. What have you got? Have you got something worth selling? Do you have a block of business? Do you have equipment? And do you have, are you manufacturing something where you have physical assets that you're going to be dispersing or trying to sell in terms of selling your business? For most of us who have participated here as kind of solo folks, there's not a lot of that out there. Now, the primary asset that I had, and that many that I know who have been in a similar model of business, is your client list. You've developed these clients, you've nurtured your clients, you want to take care of your clients as you plan this exit strategy. And you need to make some decisions in terms of how you want to do that. I know folks who have sold their client lists. The option I chose is to set up a referral process. I identified some folks that I would refer clients to should they still be coming back to me and saying, oh my God, Marilyn, I didn't realize you're retired. Who can help me with this? And finding folks to do that. And as much as we have always tried to share and support each other and things like that as women and as colleagues, you got to charge for that, because that's what's left of your business. That's your assets. So I would suggest you set up like a referral structure that, doesn't hurt the person who's getting that business much, takes care of you a little bit. And as that next bullet says, takes care of your clients. So you want to go for that. There's paperwork, and a lot of that depends on what your corporate structure is. And that is why I have a note here that says, make your accountant your strategic partner. And that has been a really important theme for me throughout my retirement planning as well. Opdyke Consulting Group, Inc. is a corporation. It is not an LLC. When I started my company, LLCs were kind of a new framework, and my accountant said, they're really used for real estate. Let's go corporate. And I'm really glad I had. It allowed me to do things like set up I'm the only employee, though I employed my husband for a while after he retired. Allowed us to have I have a 401k that was part of the business that I had to go through the closure of. I used a lot of things in that corporate structure that helped me with my retirement planning. So on your business side, you talk to your accountant and talk to that person 5 years before you're ready to do this. And if you haven't already, and you're in an earlier stage, be having those conversations about setting up retirement structures early on while you're still making some good money. Now, on the planning for yourself, you got to plan financially. You got to plan for health issues and health insurance and health care. And then you got to go through sort of the mental health stuff about assessing what matters to you and kind of designing what it is you're going to do. But those are big enough, and I think important for all of our age groups involved here, that I wanted to give each of them their own slides. So starting with money, financial. Money isn't everything, but it sure helps. I got to tell you, it is a real plus to have a good retirement account, have the, you're going to get to Social Security. I'll tell you some stuff on that, but start saving now. I don't care if you are a student or going into your first job. Start taking advantage of every retirement piece that's out there. It might be a 401k, a 403b, set up IRAs. You got to start paying yourself for retirement way early on. A lot of us who are solopreneurs, or went into this solo work, did it coming out of corporate or coming out of another organization. You've got your experience pieces there. While you're in that the other organization, while you're working in corporate, for example, is where I came out of 3 different corporations before I went independent, 20 plus years. I made sure that every time I got a raise, I upped my percentage of my 401k so that I didn't notice it, and got to that point where I was maximum input in there. So that when I made that decision back in 1999 to leave all that corporate, and that you miss a lot of stuff like that, I was able to never touch that until, and I barely touch it now, so I've got this nice nest egg there. What I also did, though, in these last, I think we set this up maybe 5 or 6 years ago, worked with my accountant, set up a 401k in my own business as a corporation. I'm the employee. And every year at the end of the year, I only pay myself periodically. I only paid myself like an actual paycheck periodically. I ran a lot of expenses through the business and things, but I was in a position where I didn't have to have that cash all the time. And then I could, at the end of the year, sit back and go, okay, how much can I afford to go max? In some years I did. And I had a final paycheck, because, on your forms, it all just washes out. And we would sit down and calculate, okay, I'm going to have a paycheck that at the top is, $28,000, but 24,000 of it is going into my IRA, and I pay off the, your Social Security, Medicare pieces of it. and, end up with a paycheck of $22, which was fine because I now just put a nice wad tax-free in there. Once again, when you're doing these kinds of things, make your accountant your strategic partner. You sit with that accountant, you go, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. How can we do this? Sometimes, and I don't know everybody's marital status. In my case, my husband, who's the same age as I am, ended up, his retirement plans went a little off because his company closed their corporate headquarters here in Michigan. And the good news on that is he got a severance. So we had his severance out here, but then guess what? Lo and behold, they wanted him to come back and consult. And so he's making money off on the side, that he's got the severance, that's already enough money. So with that extra money, we wanted to find a way to put it right into retirement and not pay more taxes on that because he's already doing the severance. Guess what? I made him an employee. He is an employee. He became an employee of Opdyke Consulting Group, Inc. The consulting work that he did back to the company got paid to Opdyke Consulting Group, Inc. We set him up in the 401k plan, and we were able to basically protect a lot of that money, put it straight into retirement funds. So use that accountant to help you figure out creative ways to do this. But meanwhile, I don't care how old you are, start taking advantage of these pieces so you've got them when the time comes. Now, for those of us who are a little older, you also have to decide the best time to take Social Security. You can start doing that when you're 62. I waited until I was basically 65 and a half. 66 years old was there's your, that's the full retirement piece out of Social Security. And, you're going to get all kinds of bombardment that says, well, wait until you're 70, wait here, and you're going to have this much more. I sat down and calculated those numbers out. And for me to wait longer and go for that, I would have had to live to be 83 years old before I broke even. That's a scam to me. So, and the other thing, remember, if you're, I've got 2 kids. My husband has 2 kids. We have 10 grandchildren between us. If you're looking to try to leave some money behind you when you go, they can't access your Social Security. If you die at 70, all that Social Security, it's gone. The government keeps it. So even if you take that money and put it in a savings account, they can inherit your savings account. They can't inherit your Social Security. All depends on how much you need to live on, what you're going to do there. The other surprise coming in on some of that financial for me was I couldn't wait to get to Medicare at 65 because, for many years I was single. I was a single mother of middle school kids when I started Opdyke Consulting Group. Paying for healthcare is we all know it. When you're making your own payments and you aren't getting like a company paying for your healthcare premiums, you pay a lot. One of the things I learned though is Medicare is not free. I don't tell us going, no, it's not. They go back and they look at the 2 years prior to when you turn 65. Look at how much money you made on your tax return. So if you're filing a joint tax return and you have a spouse who is also still working, or took a severance package and took it as a lump, and they go, oh, you made X amount of money that year. Oh, and they look at your investment income too. It's almost like they punish you for doing things that you were supposed to be doing to plan for retirement. And all that goes into a calculation and gives you a premium you have to pay on Medicare that isn't free. And it doesn't cover dental, it doesn't cover vision, it doesn't cover hearing. You end up with another supplemental plan. I travel internationally. I had a supplemental plan that would give me health coverage when I traveled internationally. You have pay more for prescriptions. You have another piece in there. It adds up. So make sure you're thinking about having money. Don't think that, oh, I'm going to turn 65 and Medicare is going to mean I don't ever have to pay for healthcare premiums again. You know, if you're at the poverty level, I think that might help you actually in this. But meanwhile, I don't think it's worth the trade-off, but Medicare isn't free. And by the way, here another tip on Social Security, and this is something to think about with your accountants. Your amount of Social Security is calculated based on your highest 35 earning years over your lifetime of earnings. Okay. So when you get your printout or go online with Social Security, it's going to say, oh my gosh, it goes all the way back when I was 16 years old and they were taking stuff out and made this much. You can almost track it with your career. For many of us who are independent, we don't necessarily take big paychecks. At least I did. I mean, I had to more when my kids were my kids are launched. Like I said, I got 10 grandkids. These last years, I'm not giving myself big paychecks. I'm operating differently that way, keeping money in the business, doing stuff different, running expenses. You know, my phone's paid by the business, my computer and internet are paid by the business, those kinds of things. But before you make that shift to, you know, having your W-2 say that you made $35,000 that year, make sure you've got 35 years of good income to get that Social Security at as high a level as it can be. So again, being a little strategic on that and making sure your accountant is your partner. Now, those pieces said, doing stuff costs money. So it's good to have it. Like I said, Bob and I, our planning was all around international travel. We've been able to do some amazing trips that we would not be able to do without having the savings and the wherewithal that we spent years doing. But there's lots of stuff out there that you can do that doesn't cost money. You just need to be creative and you need to be able to adapt. You look at your, you put yourself on a budget, you do that, you still, you're still got a ton of bills and, you've got to make housing decisions. So it sounds like what Stella's doing now, my husband and I are trying to decide yet. We haven't left our larger house yet, and we're trying to figure out what comes next. But you can adapt to all kinds of stuff. Deb, I spent more time in the woods this year mushroom hunting than I have in a lot of years. Guess what? That's free. There's lots of stuff you can do and connecting with friends and things like that. So, but the financial piece to me is the one that's the most challenging to really think about early. You can't just approach the financial planning in your last in your last 5 years. Even you got to start way before that and do everything you can. And those of you who are in transition or who are looking at job changes, etc., please do everything you can not to touch those retirement accounts, because it's really hard to get stuff back into them when you do. And try not to take loans out of them if you can. Leave that money there, work with a good financial advisor. If you've left the company, you roll out of that 401k, put it into an IRA with somebody who you can work with, so you can take advantage of how well the market's done and things like that. And that's what really builds the wealth in those accounts. When you start taking out, it's like a downward spiral. So please be careful on that. Okay. Health. There are so many things I can talk about in health that I'm going to just give you this one statement. Take care of yourself now, because it only goes downhill from here. We had the parents of an in-law comment. They're a little older than Bob and I, commented Thanksgiving about 5 years ago, and they just said, do everything you can in your 60s, because when you turn 70, the warranty is over. Everything falls apart. And we're in the middle of that right now. We were supposed, the pandemic has thrown everything for a loop. But, we have some health challenges going on with my husband right now that's going to make a big change to how we travel and what happens there. It's hard to catch up, and things do start falling apart. So please be careful of that. Take care of yourself. Oh my God, get your mammograms, get your colonoscopies, have a primary care doc who actually looks at your health holistically, so that you're doing the preventive things as part of your planning, basically. So when it all starts hitting, because it does, you can at least be more ready, and things can happen from there. Okay. Now into more of the mental health kind of stuff. And this part actually is, I think, kind of the fun. Got your money set up, you're taking care of yourself, maybe working out a little, trying to watch what you eat, things like that. This is the time to really step back and rethink what matters to you. This is a good rethink time. It's actually, how before you make a career transition, especially not one thrust on you that you're planning for yourself, you got to sit back and say, what matters to you? What are the things that are most important in your life? Is it family? Is it health? Is it travel? Is it being outdoors? You want to do that kind of rethink again. But the cool part now is you can act on it a whole lot more freely than you ever got to back when you were raising kids, or you were, having, a lot of other demands on your time and your mental health, really. Being a working mom is not an easy role. The thing about retirement is they're launched. You actually get to let yourself be free to be happy. So I pulled this second bullet from some work that I think it was maybe Kathy McCarfrey had put on LinkedIn or whatever. And it was a 3-step. In their case, they were talking about midlife, to be able to rethink. This is an approach to rethink. And they said, harvest your past, check your present, design your future. And I think that's good advice at this transition point too. What in your past has brought value? Don Henley, I'm a big Don Henley Eagles fan. It's in one of Don Henley's songs, he talks about having the wisdom that living brings. It's a quote my husband and I throw at each other as something happens and we go, oh my gosh, that would have been so, aren't we glad we didn't do that? And we go, hey, the wisdom that living brings, harvest that. Grab those things that wisdom that we've picked up over the years, just out of pure experience, and pull from that as you think about what do I want to do for the rest of my life? An old favorite book of mine is a book called New Passages. Those who are on the older side might remember Passages was a book that they gave us in career counseling all the time. Gail Sheehy, she's a sociologist, anthropologist too, I think. She had a book called Passages, and it talked about going through life in these phases. Then she did New Passages, and in that she added another phase of life. And what her research had told her, and this was back in the 90s, I think, that she did this. She had in her sociology research discovered that if a woman hits the age of 50, cancer-free and free of heart disease, there was like a 90% probability that she would live to be 90. Okay, that's a lot of years, especially when we think about retiring at 65, 68, whatever. And so she called this last phase the age of wisdom. And she had a circle of girlfriends that Judy Collins was one of, so it was like really cool girlfriends. And they called themselves the Wise Women in Training. And my girlfriends and I lifted that. And I have a group of girlfriends who we call ourselves WIT, when we get together somewhere for a long weekend every year and just have fun together. But we have aged together. We have outlasted husbands together. We have consider ourselves wise women in training. So find that wisdom, find your ways to let yourself be free to be happy. Now, as you design this next step, there's some other notes I wanted to put in here. Be curious, be creative, be free. You know, you haven't been able to be happy like this since you were a kid. You know, you get to actually say, guess what? You know, bills are covered, kids are launched, but I can do whatever the hell I want. Go for it. Have some fun. So, but the other is also remember nothing's locked in stone. If you go on a path, you know, I bought paints, guys. I bought a beautiful paint by number set. I had it all set up, and then I looked at this. I said, "So this is so not me. I am not going to do this." So it's all sitting in the back corner, and I didn't pursue it because I realized that wasn't for me. Bring others on your journey if you want. You know, bring those girlfriends, do others. But if you want to do something solo, go for it. I'm already considering putting one foot back in. You know, should I, you know, I've got a lot of stuff going. You know what? When next time that guy calls, I might do some coaching still. I might do facilitate a strategic planning session for a nonprofit who I love dearly and donate to anyway. We can do that because we can pick. But the bottom line, of course, is what it looks, feels, and sounds like is entirely up to you. And that is a hugely freeing thing. But you don't get to be in that free mode unless you've done the other planning that allows you to have all those life issues, the financials, the health, things like that, not be a factor. And of course, you got to be adaptable because you never know, you know, when something's get thrown at us. So here are some lessons learned from a 10-month retiree. They're just kind of random. But hey, girlfriends are the best. It is so good to stay connected, have that circle, but you also got to be sure to talk all this out with your spouse or significant other, especially if you do joint tax returns, all this stuff we've been talking about on the creativity and things, you got to be tied on that. This next bullet is especially important for me. I think you guys know, or we've talked before, I have 10 grandchildren under the age of 8. With four kids. I have 5 kindergartners right now. That year, 2016, everybody had one, and my younger daughter had twins, and they all started kindergarten this year. So my caution is be careful of the grandma trap. You can love them, but you don't have to babysit them every day, and I don't. I'm back up. Something happens at school, something going there, happy to come in. Make sure your library card is up to date. I'm an avid reader. It is really fun to be able to read whatever you want, you know, and and I'm actually looking for a book club. If anybody knows a book club or wants to start one with me, I would like to have a book club. Just, oh, good, Sherry, I would love to talk to you about, let's follow up on that. It helps to have a hobby. That has been a challenge for me. You do have plenty of downtime. I didn't come into this with a hobby. I mean, things like mushroom hunting or travel, those are like events. But I have a sister who's older than I am. She's a quilter. She's thrilled that now she gets to quilt. I never had any of that, so I'm struggling with that. Don't let your body or your brain atrophy. It can start to happen. Find a way to give back. That's always been a huge issue for me. I haven't quite figured out my volunteer plan yet. AARP is a great resource. Those of you who are younger, when you get the invite, when you turn 50, do not just throw it away. It's worth reading their newsletters and things. They have great planning ideas. There's good stuff in there. Plan like crazy, but don't be afraid to change because stuff happens. And for gosh sakes, no matter what, have some fun. So those are my thoughts on retirement. I am wide open to questions. We have a little bit of time. So Brenda or whoever's in charge, why don't we go back and maybe take the, here, I'm going to stop the share. There, we can come back this way and let's talk.
All right, awesome. That was amazing. I mean, so many great pieces of information in there, Marilyn. Before we move us into Q&A, we've got about 5 minutes to go. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to thank our live audience for watching because I like to not have the questions be on live. If you want to ask questions, you got to come to an Inforum meeting, and that way we can be a little bit more candid. So give me just a second here.